Today's show is brought to you by homebrewsupply.com. Homebrew Supply is your one-stop shop for brew day ingredients, recipes, equipment, and more. Take advantage of everyday low pricing and everyday flat rate shipping at homebrewsupply.com. Go to homebrewsupply.com right now, use our promo code HHH, and you'll receive 5% off your order. Homebrewsupply.com. Let us make your next brew day better.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Well, hey there, and welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you'd like discussed on a future episode, visit homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the Submit a Question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing, and today I'm joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com, Mr. James Carlson. James, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Fantastic. The weather is barely 100, so we got that going for us.
And they said, Saturday, which I'm very excited. We're going to brew on the big machine Saturday. So
what? Why a Saturday brew? What's the occasion, or just because?
Well, Wes finally got the burners installed, so we're going to be doing 10 barrels of beer.
I get it now. What you mean by big? You mean you're going to be brewing at
the brewery,
at Teddy's.
Yep.
Is it Teddy's Brew House? What are they calling it?
It is Teddy's Brew House. In fact, if you guys want to check it out on Instagram, I think it's under Teddy's Brew House. If you'll search, you'll see it. The theme, it's based on the president, Theodore Roosevelt. The owner's a big fan of him. So the whole brewery is kind of decorated around that theme. And he's got a really nice copper pot mash and bull pot and HLT. He's got 3 or 4 fermenters and 6 conditioning tanks. So we're going to do the first inaugural batch on that system Saturday.
And what was it? Was it speak soft and carry a big stick, or what was what was Teddy's?
Yeah.
I forget. I always forget what it was. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah, I am so excited. Do they have an actual? Oh, let me straighten this camera. My goodness. Do they have an actual day official hard grand opening that they're promoting, or what's the word on that?
No, I'm going to help them do the first few batches of beer. I might do a little brewing on the side to help Wes out, but as far as I know, I think they're still working on finishing the restaurant. It's going to be a restaurant, it's going to be a bakery, and then the brew house itself.
Yeah, I never want to put pressure on Wes when we see each other about dude, when is the grand opening? Because we want to record, we want to do podcasts from there.
Yeah, and I talked to him. He's totally cool with that. So anytime is good with him.
I'm glad we have a connection with him through you, because otherwise I was gonna make it awkward, because I've seen the photos that he's been sending. Yeah, that place looks phenomenal.
It's gonna be neat.
What they're doing looks phenomenal, and I'm jealous. You're going to have to take photos and post them for us
definitely.
Of the brew day, because that system, I know Wes, speaking of Wes, has just been waiting for that day to actually brew.
He came down and met us in Nuremberg for the Brow last year, just so that he could find his system, and he did, and it came in. It took about 6 months to get here, and he's had to do quite a bit of after the fact stuff with contractors to get it going. They had to have their own custom made burners for both the HLT and the bull pot, and then had to have all that passcode. It's been a long process of getting there, but it's going to be neat to finally get to use the system.
You know what? It has been long. I totally agree, but it's been under a year, which to me that's been impressive. Because I've heard, I don't know if horror story is the right word, but you know what I mean? People have said that ordering a custom system and getting it in within a year, it's kind of like, what's the rule of thumb when you get a new house built? It's like, I don't want to say 9 months. I bought a new to me house, but I didn't have a house built. But there's some rule of thumb where it's like, if you get it within this amount of time, that's good. And that actually might be, I always think, especially regarding a house, take your time, build my stuff right, and make sure it's all good to go. So I'm sure Wes's system, going through QA, all that fun stuff. As long as it wasn't like a Creed Bratton or something running QA, his system should be good to go.
No, it's good, and he's even got he was able to find a 1,500 gallon cold liquor tank. So if you can imagine a huge stainless steel vessel with it's jacketed with cooling coils and a big huge chiller. So think of it like our chiller at work for the fermenter, but on a lot bigger scale.
But a lot bigger scale. Yeah.
So he'll be able to use that as well. He's got all kinds of goodies.
That's cool, man. I can't wait for it. Other small talk news, Todd's surgery went well. It went fantastic. Yeah. He's home. He's resting. And by resting, I mean he's bothering the ever-loving life out of me through texting, through calling, and through email. I am convinced, and this is just convincing me more than ever before, he doesn't know how to rest. He doesn't know how to take it easy.
And I'm afraid he's gonna aggravate. I mean, did you realize 2 days ago they cut discs between his vertebrae and his neck, fused bone, and he called me on the phone and we talked for 20 minutes. And I'm like, dude, I would be in bed right now. The last thing I'd be thinking about is work. My dad went through that and he wasn't the same for months. This is just shocking how much they've got, because that was 30 years ago. I can't wrap my head around the fact that he had that surgery. What was it? Tuesday?
Correct. Yeah, it was Tuesday, midday too. And you're right. So I didn't talk to him that day. I think he was out, thankfully, for the majority of that day. But I was talking with Liz back and forth, but he called me, man, like 10:45 or 11 the next day. And I go, oh my God, what are you calling me for? He goes, oh, just on my way home. And he didn't sound affected at all by what had just happened to him. Like I was telling him on the phone, like, I don't really believe that you had a procedure done, man. Like,
no, that's not possible. I would be a big baby. I'd probably be begging for them to let me stay in the hospital.
My friend, I'm trying to get special treatment around the house already, and I haven't even had my vasectomy. That's next week. I'm the epitome of big baby.
Good luck with that.
Moving on. Okay. Yeah, nobody wants to. I got feedback from last episode. They're like, you went way too long with your medical stuff. And I was like, who didn't want to hear about me and washing balls and whatever? Anyway, raise your hand. You're the downvote. I found him. We did. Update on Todd's surgery. This Patreon. Hey, we've been kind of talking about it back and forth on the show. We're kind of dropping hints specifically on our Instagram and our other social networks. And so finally, we can announce that we do have a way for our community to be more involved with the process. We have launched our official, let me get the screen over. Boom. Oh, wait, that's our homepage. If you're watching it, you can see we've landed at patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. And here you'll see, oh my goodness, first off, we have people supporting us already. My job here is done.
That's cool.
I'm going to put in my 2 weeks to Todd and tell him that, he's part of this, so I need him still. But if you go look, we have a ton of different tiers, starting at just $1, and that's going to give you still a lot of perks. Todd wrote up a real nice, usually I do all the copywriting, but Todd wrote up a real nice intro just saying like what we're doing with the podcast, with our video, with our website, and kind of how production works for that. You'll see we got, like I said, different levels from $1 ranging up to $50, where the $50 gives you a recipe kit every month. You're going to tell us the kind of stuff you like, and we'll curate a recipe. And by us, I mean James is going to make you a recipe. We also have a bunch of other premium perks like the CM Becker swag, koozies, hats, private access to Facebook groups. And that actually, a lot of these are in the lower tiers as well. So just go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour if you're interested at all. We do have a goal right now. It's kind of arbitrary number. I'll probably start this even if we don't hit 50 patrons in the immediate future. But we have been talking about doing an addition, like an addendum show throughout the week where it's a lot less formal. It's not necessarily just about home brewing, because we get questions. I forwarded you some of the questions before from all over the spectrum of really ridiculous to like on topic, but it's not really home brewing related, so it wouldn't make sense to do it on the show. This kind of like this, I'm calling it on the you'll see on the screen again, I'm calling it the Homebrew Happy After Hours, which it's not necessarily going to be a late night show or anything, but I thought it'd be a good chance at providing more content, even more content, and addressing maybe craft beer questions or just any kind of questions that they have. But yeah, wrapping this part up.
Car questions.
Yeah, when James is on, that will be the Gearhead episodes, because I will not be I won't be good for giving y'all answers to car questions.
Yeah, I've been restoring cars for going on 30 years now.
Yeah, he is, and legit, and you would be surprised. And maybe you wouldn't actually, because the type of people, there is a good Venn diagram of people who homebrew, and people who homebrew and are engineers, or people who homebrew and enjoy cars is a very common overlap in the Venn diagram. There's a lot of gearheads. There's a lot of people who homebrew and reach out and they say, oh yeah, I'm also doing this and this. And you've met a lot of them at our trade shows. And that would actually that's a great idea.
Yeah.
We'd have to pitch another show to Todd on top of this. Gearhead Happy Hour, or we'll figure it out. But anyways, patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. And then one more, way less pitchy, way less sales. The winners of our sticker label contest have been announced. If you go to homebrewhappyhour.com, you can see that. I will announce it here as well for video. Our video audience, you can see on the screen here. So the funny thing is, James and I and Todd all saw the labels independently, not talking to each other at all. I sent the email and I said, James, Todd, here are all the labels that got submitted. Check them out. Let me know what you think and pick your 3 favorite ones and write them back to me. And we had, how many did we have? Like 50 or maybe not. No, like 30 something labels. It was in the 30s, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
It was
a lot to look at.
It was a lot to look at. And I'm counting unique labels, not even, because some people submitted multiple labels from their same brand. It was a good reception. I appreciate everyone who entered. We were not able to come to a consensus because we all picked 3 different favorites. So I just said, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take y'all's top picks and my top pick. I'm going to throw them in a hat, and then we're going to just pick who won. So with that being said, our third prize winner was submitted by Philip S., and his was the Funky Kolsch Medina. That was that was your first pick, which
that was mine.
Which I love. I love Tone Loc, by the way. I was born in the 80s, so I didn't grow up with him. God forbid my parents would have not let me listen to that. But Funky Kolsch Medina actually sounds really interesting. A orange and coriander Kolsch. Have you ever even done fruit or excess to your Kolsch? I've never.
No. I've done the only time I've used fruit and coriander be wheat beer, and I use the skin of a lemon and limes and coriander, crush it up real good and throw it in the boil pot. But I can't wrap my head around that. But I'd definitely have to try it.
Yeah, and I think he knew he could have done anything with Kolsch, and he would have gotten a vote from us. So like. You knew
it was a cool label. I liked it.
It was a super cool label.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot too. Second prize. This was my first pick, but it drawn from the hat didn't work out. Submitted by Rob P. from Pixel Perfect Brewing. Oh, let me zoom out of that. There we go. Dead Ales Tell No Tales. I like that retro. Maybe I'm a child. Who knows? But that retro like video game look to it.
It's pixelated, wasn't it?
Yeah,
is that the one that was pixelated?
It is. Yep, it's pixelated. It's the actual beer that the label was made for is a coconut cream ale. Coconut cream ale sounds pretty darn good to me.
It does, yeah.
I've never brewed with coconut. Again, for full transparency, I've only brewed the recipes James has made me or Joe, and none of them have had coconut in it yet. So I should say I'd never brewed with coconut yet.
It's really good with stouts.
Right, and maybe that's something my pop and I can do, because he wants to start getting ready for that season, which here right now in Texas, I don't feel like we're anytime near stout season, air quotes being used right now, but I hope and long for stout season to come. But yeah, Pixel Perfect Brewing, congratulations to you for second place, Rob P. And our grand prize winner from Tyler D., a Munich Dunkel called Dunkel Sam. I like, so I'm a sucker for anything German. That's the half German in me. I don't know if I have any of my stickers around. Oh, I have a button. The whole, like, me and my dad stay in the Stoibings Brauhaus. Like, I like German writing. I like German beers. I know I'm preaching to the choir when I say German beers are delicious.
I love them too.
Don't have to talk you into that. What I especially like about this label, and I didn't really see it at first, is if you zoom in to a lot of people, when they do labels, they like to make it replicative of real beer labels. So that comes with your warnings and, the information on it, like ABV or IBU. What he did here, if you read the government warning, it says, "I'm not the government, so I don't care. Consumption of alcoholic beverages impairs your ability to drive a car or operate machinery, but dramatically improves your dance moves. So have at her, Jagger." And then his deposit being from MA, which I think is Massachusetts, but I'll get the emails correcting me if it's not. Specifically, deposit back to me so I can reuse this bottle for more beer. I love it. I absolutely love it. That makes me smile. I appreciate a person with a good sense of humor. But that is our, you should be contacted, all the winners, by Sticker U. If you haven't been yet, just email me, joshua@homebrewhappyhour.com, and I will make sure that you get your prize packs awarded to you. They've been real good to us, so I highly doubt that they haven't contacted you yet or won't be in touch with you soon. So congratulations. Thanks to all who submitted, and send me feedback on what kind of contest or things like this that y'all like to see done in the future. Because I was really, my biggest concern when we did it was, what if nobody wants to enter it? Because either people are scared that their labels won't win, or maybe our audience is not really as many downloads as our server tells us it is, and it's all just bots. I have no idea how to gauge it, but we had a really good turnout. I was happy with it, and it seemed that people enjoyed themselves with the labels. We had a bunch of goof labels that I don't think I sent y'all yet. I was going to put them on the episode, but I didn't, because I don't want to shame anybody.
No, we don't want to do that.
No, but I had a good time with this contest. So thank you all for participating. If you don't mind, James, I'm going to get right into question number one for this week's show. Preston P submitted his question using the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Preston wrote in, during which part of the brewing process is flavor most affected? For example, if I wanted to make a jalapeno Helles, do you suggest that I add jalapenos during primary fermentation or secondary fermentation? I think I have an understanding that I should never add fermentable items into the mix once primary fermentation is done, but I may be wrong about that. Thank you for doing the podcast. I really do enjoy it. Now, I know I sent you the questions. This is a twofer. Our buddy Frank, longtime listener, also submitted a similar question, and I'm going to read his as well. Like, this is going to be all collaborative as question number one, because it's very similar, but it'll give us a lot to talk about. So what Frank wrote, it was, hello, gentlemen, and thank you for providing a great podcast, as well as Todd and James giving helpful brewing information, and Joshua giving us hope that we can all brew. That's not nice. Well, with that being said, I'm planning on brewing a 5-gallon IPA with habaneros. I'm planning on using 2-row with Chinook hops, and my issue is, how do I treat the habanero? I just want the aroma of the habanero, so would I put it in the boil towards the end? If you guys can guide me on how to sanitize it or any other helpful advice, I would greatly appreciate it. Keep up the great work and great content. Cheers, Frank from Fullerton. I know I just threw a lot at you, but
no, that's easy. Here's the way I would do it. I would not add it to the boil, because think of any kind of peppers as like hops, and you don't want to put that in the boil, because what the subtleties of the peppers, jalapeno has some subtleties that habanero actually has a little sweetness that the jalapenos don't. If you boil that just goes away and you just get heat. So if I was going to do a pepper beer, first I would take the seeds out and devein it. Now, if you're not sure what I mean by devein, if you pull out a bell pepper and you cut it in half, it's got these real tall white veins that come up off the fruit on the inside. Now, every pepper has that. Scrape those down to just the fleshy part, and then chop it up into little tiny pieces. And what I would do, I'd get a clean, like some nonstick aluminum foil and put it in a cookie sheet and stick it in the oven at about 200 degrees for 10, 15 minutes. And then put that in the fermenter, because you're going to do two things. You're going to bring some of the flavor out in the pepper, and you're also going to sanitize it for the secondary. But put it in the secondary. Don't put it in the primary. Just put it in the secondary. Because during and before high carousing, there's a lot of CO2 activity. And just like with hops, it's going to scrub off some of the flavors and the aromatics. So just put it in the secondary. You know, I'm a big proponent of not using a secondary. But if you were going to add fruit or peppers, I probably would do a secondary.
See, and I included the question, the first one, because I know you are not a believer of secondary anymore. And I didn't know how you would handle a process. I mean, you would do a secondary if it was necessary. But the window of necessity is very small, I'm hearing. Like, I mean, if you were using fruit,
I mean, you could even if you wanted to do, and that's another thing. I would put the pepper in for 3 or 4 days. You know, you could go longer, but if you didn't want a secondary, just make sure 2/3 of the fermentation is done, or all the fermentation is done. But you don't want to cold crash and put the peppers in. You want to have it at room temp. So if you're going to do a lager, when you're doing the diacetyl, when you bring that back up to room temperature, that'd be the ideal time to add the peppers. And then just time that to where it's doing the diacetyl and it's also pulling in the flavor of the peppers 3 or 4 days before you keg. And then you can keg. But the people that absolutely don't want to do a secondary, they can do it that way.
Nice. I like that. I don't know. I do know why people would not want to do secondary if they don't have the means of doing maybe closed transfer or something, because you're introducing too many factors for like oxidation, right? Isn't that the main concern?
Yeah. And that's another thing. When you heat it up in the oven, it's going to help take a lot of that out too.
Right on. Let's talk about the very broadness of the first part of Preston's question. During which part of the brewing process is flavor most affected? I don't know if there's a correct answer here. So let's just dive down a little. Let me argue real quick it's got to be the yeast, right? Doesn't yeast have to affect the flavor most, or am I totally wrong?
No, yeah, I think absolutely we've got two things that affect flavor more than anything. And I would say water and yeast. My personal opinion is water is a big thing. And I didn't realize how big a thing it was until I actually brewed with water that wasn't so good. The beer was terrible. And then yeast, if you don't propagate enough to pitching, or if you use a good product like Imperial, where you don't have to do propagation or starters, if you have enough healthy numbers of yeast, that can really make a difference in the way your beer tastes. It'll taste more like it's supposed to, versus if you underpitch or you have not as viable yeast, there's that lag time that can produce off flavors as well. So that's my big things.
We did just feature that article that Lorena Evans from Brewer's Friend wrote about using like the intro to RO systems and building a basic profile. I'd highly recommend people go check that article out, because one or two things real quick. One, I totally forgot to get those pH strips from you, man. Last time I was up there, I
completely forgot to. I'll set them on my desk so I look at them every day.
It's not your fault. My dad's the one who even reminded me, because I had forgotten so much that I got home, and my dad, who listens to the show, I think he might actually be the only real person who's supporting our podcast on the Patreon. He, I'm kidding, but not for long, probably. He said, because he heard the show, he goes, "So did you bring the pH strip? Because we've never tested his well water. We've always had great results.
That's awesome.
Knock on wood, we've always had great results. So obviously I don't think the water's bad, but
no. And that's the biggest thing too, is if you can make good beer with your water and you've made several styles, then lucky you, because I don't have that."
Right. Oh, right. Well, where you live, is the water where you live is even worse than there in Comanche?
Oh yeah. Dissolved solids are through the roof. It's very alkaline water. It's terrible for brewing. In fact, it's so bad that an RO system has a hard time with it.
Oh, wow. Do you have an RO at home?
I took one of the suitcase ones that we use for the keg washer just to see. And it took, at an hour, it hadn't halfway filled a 5-gallon carboy up. That's how much water it was rejecting through the membrane.
Holy moly. That's a lot, dude.
Yeah. I would have to go to a water softener system first and then run it through an RO system second. But that was before I had city water. Now I have city water. And I can go ahead and install, and I need to do that. I may do that today. Order an RO system, put under the sink.
There you go.
Because someday I might want to brew at home. I haven't brewed at home in years because we have this wonderful setup here, but you never know. I might want to do, because I've got probably 200 pounds of grains in the freezer. No, I've used some of that, but yeah, I've just been rat holing ingredients, and I have hops, and the only thing I don't have is yeast.
I love it. This is an inside joke no one else will get, and I should never make those on a podcast, but you are the brewing equivalent of Vilver, where you just don't get rid of stuff. I
don't, yeah. No, if you can freeze malt, then why not? In fact, at one time, I don't know what happened. We had a bag of malt break open, a DME, and I was able to salvage a good bit of the bag, and we got credit from the shipper. So I took the bag of DME home. And then when we went to Providence, I had a freezer go out. Not my freezer. When we got back, my kegerator went out, and I had unplugged both of them because they're sitting right next to each other. And I had all that, the DME, a big piece of brisket. And I started smelling weird things, about a week later, and I never plugged the freezer back in when I fixed the kegerator.
Oh, no.
It ruined all that was in there.
I'm sorry.
Including that beautiful brisket that we've been saving for Family Day.
I shouldn't laugh at. I'm sorry. It's not funny at all.
Oh, it's actually pretty funny.
Okay.
Because I thought, man, I've never smelled that smell before. Well, that's a combination of malt, hops, and meat festering in a warm freezer.
Fermented flesh, more or less?
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah, I can imagine. I remember, was it weather? Because I remember your power getting knocked out when we were in Providence, but I don't remember the cause of it.
Yeah, I don't know. It could have been a spike, but what had happened where there's a little relay that plugs in the side of the compressor, and that thing smoked. And the metal that it burns up, it turns into little crystals. So when I pulled it off the compressor, because the pressure was just going in and out, in and out, in and out, and that was the relay, the hot start relay. You have to have two 110 hitting the motor initially to get it going, and then it goes to one leg. And that was why that was burnt up.
Man, that's crazy. Before we move on to the second question, I want to ask you, is Preston correct when he said he should never add fermentable items into the mix once primary is done? Is that a good rule to follow? Or what is the kind of rule on adding extra stuff that might be fermentable?
Yeah, I mean, it can, but a lot of times you could pasteurize that. If you've removed it, you're going to have a little bit of secondary fermentation, not a lot. But what I mean by pasteurization is you need to get it over 150 degrees, heat it up over 150 degrees for 10, 15 minutes. And then that will keep any bad bugs from fermenting on with the sugars that you're introducing into the fermenter. So as long as you do that, you're fine. And you may get a little additional fermentation from normal fermentation, from the sugars that are in there. You just don't want any bacteria creating off flavors and potentially spoiling the batch. So that's why I always pasteurize before I put anything.
Perfect. And do you pasteurize every batch, or is that only when you're adding?
Only when I'm adding. If I'm adding fruit or anything to the batch, I'll heat it up for a little while. It's good insurance. You spend too much time and money on fermentables, and nothing is more disappointing than nursing, especially if you're doing something like that, nursing it for 2, 3, 4 weeks and then having it bad. It's not good.
It's heartbreaking.
It is.
It's heartbreaking. I'm going to make, don't tell me the answer. I'm going to make another $5 bet, which listeners of last week's episode, I lost that bet to Todd. He was right on what he paid for that freezer. I was way off. I have to pay him when I come up there. If he remembers, he might be drugged out of his mind on back pain or neck pain medicine. But I'm going to make a bet with Todd. I'm going to take the under that it's been over 5 years since you've brewed with fruit. I'll take the over, rather. I'll let him take the under on 5 years. You don't ruin the. Don't you think about it for real. I'll actually.
I already know the answer to that.
Okay, good. Don't give it up, because I'm gonna double or nothing with Todd. I'm saying 5 years. I'm not. See, I go too far. I should say 3. Todd's not listening to this. I'm gonna say 3 years. I'm gonna take the over on 3. I'll give him the option for the under, double or nothing. Anyways, Preston and Frank, thank you so much for submitting your questions. We got one more for today's show, James. It came from Gilbert T., who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com as well. He wrote, I discovered your podcast a few months back and really enjoy them. They are funny and informative. I feel like I'm sitting around with some good friends. Thank you, Gilbert.
That's cool. That's a hell of a compliment, by the way.
I know. And he might just be buttering me up or buttering us up, but he got it on the show. I'm setting a real ugly precedence with that. I feel like I'm watching or sitting around with good friends while watching. I've heard James say that you must get rid of the hot break. When I first started brewing, I would also do this, but was later told I should stop because it would cause my beer to have head retention issues. I did stop, and I did notice that the head retention improved, but I also changed from partial mash to all grain around that time, and I'm wondering if that was what improved it or if leaving the hot break in solution. My question is, have you guys noticed any issues with head retention when pulling the hot break off, or was I just given bad advice? Also, if it doesn't affect head retention, what should I look out for? Thanks in advance, and please keep the shows coming. You do. I mean, I've only scraped ever since I've been brewing, and I've never had a retention issue, but I will interject. I use a Becker faucet. I use multiple Becker faucets, and I purposely add foam to the top of my already good head. Do you know what he's talking about in regards to head retention?
Yeah, but I think there's there's two types of breaks. There's a hot break, which I remove, and there's a cold break, which is at the end of the boil. Now, the cold break at the end of the boil if you try to remove that can cause head retention problems. The reason why that I remove the hot break at the beginning of the boil is that will help reduce chill haze after your beer's done and kegged or bottled. And that's the only reason I do that. I don't touch the cold break because of the fact that it can affect head retention. That's as far as I know there's two different types of breaks. There's a hot and a cold. And the way that I was always told was that cold break's good, hot break's bad. Remove the hot, leave the cold.
And again, a lot of brewing does boil down to, no pun intended, it does come down to what works for you. Like if Gilbert is not mistaken on his understanding and he has gotten better head retention when leaving the hot break, keep doing it, dude. Like,
sure, yeah.
If that's really what's working for you, keep doing it. Lord knows we can all brew on the exact same type of system using the exact same yeast and ingredients, and we might end up with 4 different beers if there's 4 of us brewing, and all even with the same water profile. That's the thing. What it almost is frustrating to me that there is not. I have a cooler brew system that Todd sells through kegconnection.com, and he uses it. We've had a video made of you and him.
That's a good system. Too.
It's such a great system. And that video, man, it's like at 30-something thousand views now.
Wow.
A lot of views. I use that same system. And Todd, when y'all were brewing there, I forget the number y'all had to shoot for to get it to being good temperature, but it was like 8 degrees above, right? Before you poured it into the...
Yeah, I think we were shooting for 150, and I think that we striked at 158, I think.
Right, exactly. And
I mean, it went right to 150, and it stayed within a degree for an hour. It's pretty cool.
And I have the same system, and obviously temperatures are the same. And me and my dad don't have to go so high. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so weird. Like, even the literal difference of the same exact system, it could be not the integrity, that's the wrong word. The build, the composition of each individual vessel could be just...
I don't think so. I think if you think about it, we had like a tiered setup. So we had 158 on the burner, and then we carried it all the way into Todd's barn. And then we put that on a big, huge stand, and then it gravity flowed down into the cooler brew. So I think that if we were to taking temperatures, which I don't think we did, we measured the temperature of the grain of the water as it went into the grain, not outside when we boiled it.
Good point. You're right. That makes way more sense. And you're right. I didn't think off the top of my head the variable that is our brewing room. just that, like you said, ambient temperature.
Exactly.
In the barn, that ambient temperature is different than the ambient temperature at my pop's house because we brew outside. Yep. So you're absolutely right. That makes way more sense. I'm just going to cut that out because now I look stupid, James.
I'm like, no, that's a good thing to leave in, because then people will realize that it's not a static rule, and it's all boils down to how do you brew, and because I've got to where I brewed so much on the spike system, I just kind of go through the motions because I've done it so many times. But you get to know the way your system works, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I long for the set it and forget it, because when we set it and forget it, we get boil overs and we're like, oh yeah, we don't have that nice of equipment. I say that. The cooler brew is actually a very nice system, especially
it makes really good beer. That's old school.
It makes really good beer. Yeah, I think I'm going to ask you, this is a personal question now. No offense, Gilbert, but I'm hijacking your question. Is ambient temperature something you would write in your brew notes? Is that important?
Oh, yeah. In fact, when I was using the old Big Bertha, we had a Stripe temperature calculator on my laptop. And this was back in about 2009. And I had gotten the Brad Smith software.
Yeah, Beersmith.
Beersmith. Oh, so I had bought Beersmith, put it on my laptop, and that was one of the cool things about that. It had the calculator online. So I'd have my laptop out. I'd measure that. I'd have a temperature for the ambient temperature, that temperature for the grain. I'd have to punch in how many pounds of grain I had, where I wanted to be at, and it would give me water and temperature. And it was always dead on. And we basically had the same system that we did the video in, but I had built a cart to hold it all into one thing. So it gravity flowed from the HLT, because it had its own burner, into the cooler, down into the 50-gallon brew pot. So,
well, first, what happened to that cart, dude? I
still have it. It's behind my well house at home.
No way.
Yeah. And I've got my little guitar room. I got that 50-gallon Blinkman boil kettle. It's massive.
I'm gonna see what my dad wants to pay you for that cart. Well, all right, wait. Is it the cart for the 50-gallon, or is it a cart for?
It's actually, you know what it was? It was old U.S. mail carts, and they were big angle iron with looked like hog pin, like 4-inch square, hog pin panels put on there, and it had big cast iron wheels, and I cut them all up because the guy gave them to us.
Right.
They came out of a closed post office. So I just cut them all up and welded up what I needed. And I started with the HLT right here. And then the mash tun, which was the largest cooler we could find online, all the way down into the Blinkman 50-gallon boil kettle. So we didn't even have pumps. The only pump we had was for the Terminator. We'd pump into the conical. And we had one of those carts left over. I put wood in. So we put the conical on it. And then I would just push it into the building and pitch my yeast. But
do you ever miss that system?
No, not at all.
I knew the answer.
Not even this much, because it was so much work. So you can imagine using the cooler brew, but at a 50-gallon setup, and that gives you an idea, because everything else is exponentially harder.
I was going to say
expensive.
more expensive, and it seems like a lot of heavy lifting, dude.
A lot of heavy lifting, yeah.
I'm feeble. Yeah, I'm getting old.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. I want to wrap it back to Gilbert's question before we wrap up today's show. Let's just hypothetically say a person was doing everything they could and they still felt like they had head retention issues. Is that affect anything other than the head of the beer? Like, is it still have a good beer but bad head?
Yeah, that's it. And it might maybe mouthfeel a little bit, possibly. And if you have that, then just add a little protein malt. Carapils, Caravien, any kind of protein malt, a little bit of wheat can bump that up. You just need a little more protein in the beer to make that happen.
Okay, I was going to go even the other direction and say, can I just manufacture it with a creamer action faucet, like my V3S back there behind me, and just, if I had head retention, is there some
just fill it up with the creamer? But the problem is you're pushing the CO2 out of the beer, so you would have a lot of foam and you'd have a flat beer. So
good point. I don't want flat beer.
No,
don't want bad beer. But Gilbert,
by the way, Gilbert, I would say, don't worry about it. if you do, because you did say that he did say he switched to all grain.
Correct.
Okay, so just add a little bit of 4 ounces of wheat or carapils, and try that. See what happens.
I love it. I love it because that also, like you said, that would be mainly just for the head and the mouthfeel, not going to affect the overall, drastically change the overall composition or integrity of that beer that he's brewing. Sure. Does it also matter, in your opinion, to what style? I don't see in the question a specific style. Are there any, just for conversation's sake, is there any styles more prone?
Oh yeah, if you want to completely clone a American light lager, I won't name names. Yeah, just pull them both out, the beginning and the end, and then you have a crystal clear beer with no head that you could probably go buy at the store for less money.
You won't name it. Let me think about that one.
There's 3 of them that are real popular,
like Spudmiser, or Hillermite,
Coors Might.
Yeah, Coors Might. Oh, wait, I said the first word. I'm an idiot. Anyway, yes. Yeah, there are some people like, hey man, I'm not going to judge you out loud if you like drinking whatever you like drinking. Okay. That's not what this show's about. The homebrew happy after hours will definitely be about that. Just totally throwing everyone under the bus. But anyway,
No.
I'm kidding.
It's not in our nature.
No, well, we'll see. I'm kidding.
Maybe mine a little bit sometimes.
Yeah. Gilbert, thank you so much for submitting the question, as well as Frank and Preston. That's wrap up time, my friend. I really appreciate your time coming on the show with Mr. Burns out. It's been chaotic. I know you are pulling so much weight there.
We've had a phenomenally good sales month, so our sales are just blowing up right now. So that's a good thing.
I like hearing that. I know, like I said, that's when things go good and it's because Todd thinks the marketing had anything to do with it, I take all the credit. When things go bad, different.
It wasn't me, man.
It wasn't me. Yeah, I pointed the finger at everybody else, but the problem is there's nobody else. It's just me. So, but I refuse to take. I want all the praise and none of the condemnation. That's kind of.
Don't we all?
Don't we all? But anyways, thank you, my friend, and I'll see you up there actually next week.
Yep.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com, the brand new homebrewhappyhour.com, and click on the Submit a Question link at the top of the page, where now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. Thank you to today's show sponsor, homebrewsupply.com, for supporting our podcast and the homebrewing community. Go to homebrewsupply.com, use our promo code HHH, and you'll get 5% off your order. On behalf of James Carlson, the recovering Todd Burns, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.